All right, we are live and I'm late. It's 8:03 and usually I am live on Thursday night at 8 o'clock, but I'm 3 minutes late. And that's because I can't get the right camera to work. And so when things don't work out, you just got to improvise and go with the second class camera. But it does not matter because we have an amazing show here for tonight. Welcome to Living in Jacksonville channel here in Florida. It's the official YouTube Living in Jacksonville channel. And tonight we have an amazing show prepared and super blessed to have a guest. And this show was prepared with one thing in mind. There is a place in Florida, if you're not from Florida, on the Panhandle, Northwest Florida, there is a place that it's actually known. I don't know if you ever heard this, Gwen, but it's known as the Redneck Riviera. Have you heard of that?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so the Redneck Riviera is the Panhandle, and I guess it would be Destin all the way to 30A, some of the more exclusive beachfront property. And the ocean there and the beaches and the Panhandle, I would have to say, without argument, is probably some of the nicest beaches in the world. Am I crazy for saying that?
No, I agree with you.
And it's called the Emerald Coast as well, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So the reason I'm so excited to do this and the fact that you moved from there and you live there and you moved here to Nocatee, I thought it would be a great show idea because honestly, we almost bought an Airbnb. My wife and I do Airbnbs, and we almost bought an Airbnb there. And we're so mad we didn't because it was around 2011 and 12 after the market had crashed 2008 and 9. And the market hadn't fully recovered. So we were looking at properties there and it was a large stretch and we didn't go through with it. But had we gone through it, the properties doubled. So this thing was about $1.2 million. Now it's 2.1. And it was just a few blocks from the beach. And we really bummed out we didn't do it. But my wife, one of our top destinations, if you've watched on my channel, top 5 places we like to visit living here in Northeast Florida, road trips, 30A is number, I think it's on the top 3 or 4 because my wife loves going to 30A. Now, the beaches are beautiful. It gets packed like crazy in the summertime because everybody from Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, that's why they call it the Redneck Riviera. Everybody flocks there in the summertime to, is it watercolor? And we knew about this place years ago because my brother who lives in Dallas used to go to Grayton Beach. Do you know Grayton? They took their camper to Grayton Beach, which is public, so he didn't have to spend $1,000 or $1,500 a night to stay in one of those pretty places in 30A, or Rosemary Beach, or where we like to stay. And he would bring his camper there, park it for a week, and just sit on the beach every day and enjoy that amazing ocean and water. So anyway, one of our favorite places of vacation, but I can't imagine living there. And what is so cool is I do get a lot of calls from people that live over there in the Panhandle, whether it's Destin all the way up to Rosemary Beach or in between. And they moved there with one idea in mind, living in paradise, and they end up moving. And I think one of the big reasons is right now is insurance is astronomical with all the hurricanes out there hitting the Gulf Coast, and the insurance anywhere near the beach is astronomical. But I think this would have been an interesting show because first of all, if I was honored enough to have you call me, you and Rodrigo, your husband, to call me, which is an honor because you're also a real estate professional in that area. You're licensed and a practicing agent in that area. So it's an honor to help people that are relocating here, but it's more of an honor. It's almost like, I don't know what, it's a compliment when another real estate professional calls up and says, hey, when I bought my house in Blue Ridge, I had a real estate professional help us because we didn't know the area. But when someone like yourself calls and says, hey, we want to relocate to your area, we want you to help us, that's a massive compliment, first of all. But then again, you guys are amazing and it was an honor. And I was like, wow, okay, cool. You guys want to make the move. And so now you're living here in Nocatee. You made the big move with your husband and your 2 children. So we're going to talk about that whole experience, leaving paradise on the Panhandle to move here to
Yes.
North Florida to Nocatee. But before I get started, anybody who's watching, as always, I really want you to know that we are totally interested in wondering where you're watching from. This is a totally interactive show. So if you're watching from the Panhandle or any other part of Florida, anywhere else in the country, and you're thinking about places to live in Florida, make sure you put in the comments where you're watching from. We want to know. And if you're watching this in a recording, still add it in the comments. I'm dying to know where y'all are watching from. I watch it on analytics sometimes of where everybody's watching from on YouTube. But this is interactive. So if you have any questions for my guest, Gwen, here tonight, please make sure you put it in comments as we go over their discovery moving to Nocatee. How long have you been here now, Gwen?
Since the end of July.
Yeah, so it's still fresh. Okay,
It
kids
is.
started new school, everything is new, and a cool announcement at the end of the show for those that hang out about Gwen and I. So let's go ahead and get started. You lived whereabouts in the Panhandle exactly? Like what area?
So we actually owned several homes while we were there. We lived in Navarre, which is a little closer to Pensacola, and then we moved to Niceville. So Niceville is north of Destin. It's essentially connected by a bridge. And Niceville is essentially the closest to Destin you can get without being in Destin traffic. We found that out pretty quickly. And so we lived in Niceville for 3 years. And but Destin really was our go-to place whenever we would need to go shopping or we wanted to go to the beach. It was literally just a drive over a bridge, and so it was the closest to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we rent a boat, we always have to go from Rosemary. We have to drive to Destin to get a good boat rental,
Right.
and then that's where there's a sandbar where everybody parks their boats and just floats around. I think that's in Destin area, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
Right?
that's usually where all the boat rentals are, is
Yeah.
Miramar Beach or Destin proper.
Okay. So how did you end up there? How did you guys end up in that area?
So we ended up, my husband, Rodrigo, as you know, is now retired Air Force.
Okay.
But at the time, we actually got stationed there. So we lived in Texas for a few years, and San Antonio in North Carolina, and then ended up in the Destin area, since there's multiple bases right around the Destin area. It's a large amount of military bases. I believe it's 6 or 7 of them.
Wow,
So
I
it's
didn't
a lot
know
of
that.
them. Yeah,
Wow.
it's they're all pretty much from Pensacola all the way to Panama City Beach. I mean, there's multiple bases. So we ended up getting stationed there, and that was pretty much our last military station was in Herbert Field, which is Fort Walton Beach. So
Okay.
that's and that's how we ended up getting there. And
Okay.
we lived there for 5 years total until he retired last year. And yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you weren't moving there because you're like, I want to live in paradise. Because I do know people
No.
that did move there, that they went on vacation there every summer and they said, man, why don't we just live here? Everybody's moving to Florida. This is an amazing place. So you didn't move there for
Yeah.
that. You guys were there. You were a military family. You were there. I mean, not a bad place to be, right? Initially.
No, we absolutely loved it. And being that both of our families live overseas, for us, it was the perfect location. And we thought, we're going to stay there long term. This is going to be the retirement place.
Wow. Okay. So tell
Yeah.
me what you loved about it. What was so amazing about it?
it was very different from where we came from, which was San Antonio. San Antonio was pretty big city in comparison. We got to
Mm-hmm.
Florida and it was a much more relaxed life.
Mm-hmm.
Now we lived first in Navarre, which is really to the west of Destin and a little closer to Pensacola. And that was a little too slow for us. It was a really nice area, gorgeous beaches, but it was a little too far removed from everything. So
Okay.
that's when we ended up moving over to Niceville, which was much closer to Destin. Like I said, it's 5-6 miles from Destin, so it's very close.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the place where we loved it the most, I would say. It
Because.
was um, it had a small town feel to it, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, we had access to pretty much everything. So if you needed to get to I-10, it wasn't too far. If you needed to get to the beach, it was close. If we wanted to go to Panama City, it wasn't far either. So it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of like the perfect location without being in the tourist area of Destin, because anybody who's been to Destin knows Destin
Mm-hmm.
is just, traffic is horrendous, even though it's pretty small, but and
Mm-hmm.
doesn't compare to any big cities. But the infrastructure is just not set up to have that many people. So 98 will just be traffic. And
Mm-hmm.
for those folks who live out there, um, it's pretty much no. Like during the summertime, you just don't go to Destin. Or if you do go to Destin, go early in the morning. So that was our way of getting to the beach. We would go at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and by the
Yeah.
time it would get really busy, we would go back home. And so it was really like Niceville had like this really laid back type feel, but with the proximity to all the amenities that Destin had to offer.
Okay. So I mean, it's like it's just like I said, we would go in summers and it's a nightmare. Like 30A, you
Yes.
would be lucky to get a chair on the third row from the water. It's like a big deal if you can get
Oh
there
yeah.
on the first row of the beach, which is kind of ridiculous. But I mean, what you're telling me, I mean, it sounds like you have kind of like a military families in that area. You have a big tourism industry, and then add a little
Yes.
retiree in there too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Heavy
It's a weird
military.
mix. It's a
Yeah.
weird mix.
It is a very heavy military due to all the bases, of course, but at the same time, you have a heavy tourist presence at the same time. And you
Yeah.
have a lot of people who moved out there to retire or who've just lived there their entire life and who are now retired. So there's a really good mix of people.
Hmm. Now, cost of living there, now you can compare now that you live to not in Nocatee or whatever. I mean, you had a really nice home that you renovated and everything, which was surprising about why you left, and we'll get to that in a minute. Why did you leave the
Yeah.
paradise of the Panhandle, Emerald Coast to move to Nocatee? I mean, it sounds pretty amazing despite the traffic of summertime tourism.
Yeah.
Uh, how could you compare housing there to here?
I would say it depends really which areas you go to out there. There's some areas like Fort Walton Beach where prices are a little lower than like Niceville, for example. Niceville had, a little higher prices. Same with Destin, Miramar Beach. Those are the more expensive areas, I would say, comparable to even Nocatee, even though the new construction is not as prominent as it is here. Here, we were surprised by the amount of new construction there is and all the new
Mhm,
communities and especially the master plan communities.
mhm,
We weren't familiar with those whatsoever out there. I think now going towards Panama City beach. It's a little like that's where it starts now with the master plan communities. But as far as Destin is concerned, no, and neither was Niceville. So it was really more older homes. You would have some new construction here and there. There are a couple areas in Niceville that has new construction, but not to the magnitude that we have it here, especially in the San Johns County area.
Yeah.
That was pretty impressive to us.
How were the schools there for the kiddos? I mean, there's military families, so there had to be
Yeah,
schools. Was it
yeah.
private, public? What was the options?
Yeah, so and that was another reason we ended up moving to Niceville in particular, because we always were aware of the schools being really good rated public schools.
Mhm.
Now the kids were going to a private school in Niceville, and that was a different reason. It was during COVID, and we wanted to get them into a school and make sure that they actually were going to class versus like the virtual for a little bit.
Mhm.
So that was around the time where we ended up switching them into private school, and they remained in private school until we left.
Okay.
But overall, we were always told that the schools in Niceville were really good. They were A-rated schools.
What county was that?
Okaloosa County.
Okay. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So how far were
Yep.
you from Fort Walton Beach?
It was about like 30-minute drive, so
Okay.
not very far.
No.
But on a bad traffic day, it would definitely take you a little longer, but still pretty close.
Everything is spread out though on the Panhandle as well, right? I mean, city after city after city along the coast on the Panhandle, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And there's only one main road, which is Highway 98 that goes through it.
Yeah.
And so any accident that happens on that road, you'll be there for a while.
I remember driving over to Fort Walton in 30A, whatever, and remembering after the hurricane, Mexico City, is that what it was called? Mexico City, that was destroyed by the
Yep.
hurricane. Was that Irma? I don't remember which hurricane it was, but it looked pretty flattened.
Yes. Yep.
Was that
And
close to where you guys were?
so Mexico Beach is more towards like Panama City.
Okay.
But that area was destroyed a few years back
Yeah.
during one of the hurricanes. There were so many at this point, uh, all become a blur.
Yeah.
But
Well, no, the hurricanes, I mean, I keep telling people over and over again, the reason why Panhandle home insurance, anywhere you are near the ocean, the more closer you
uh,
are to the ocean, the more expensive your insurance is, because
yes,
hurricanes feed off the shallow and warm waters of the Gulf Coast. So you're more prone to hurricanes. I think Northwest Florida is most hurricane prone as South Florida is, believe it or not. So but when we were driving there, we couldn't believe how bad, you know, how bad the damage was. The Mexico Beach was completely shut down. We couldn't even drive through there unless you're a resident for at least 6 months. The trees were all flattened, so um,
yes,
pretty scary because it's flat. So when the hurricanes come through, it just plows through everything. So, okay, so you live in the place in the Panhandle, the Emerald Coast. You think you're going to live there forever. You get relocated there, and you're like, "We're going to retire here." What the heck are you doing in Nocatee? Why'd you call me?
I know, I know.
How the heck
So
did
this
that happen? I mean, was it you or Rodrigo or what happened?
No, it was me. It was me.
Oh, okay.
I ended up, as a matter of fact, it was less than a year ago. It was in February. I remember going on a business trip, and it was to Jacksonville.
Hmm.
And I had not been before. I had flown into the airport before, but I had never actually been to Jacksonville. And so when I went, I met with coworkers and we were talking, and I kept hearing the same thing, that Jacksonville was such a great place for families. And I was like, oh,
Hmm.
that's odd. I had never heard that before.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I only stayed there for like a day. So I never came to Nocatee or anything like that. Never even really saw much of the city, even though I was staying downtown And I walked around a little bit, went out to eat that night. And the next day I was driving home and I called Rodrigo and I said, listen, I think we should look into Jacksonville and I think we should really consider it. This is on my drive home
Okay.
from the business trip.
Yeah.
And he says, what? Like we had just bought a house the year before. So, and we had just spent literally 6 months renovating the house. It was a
Yeah.
90s house and it needed a complete overhaul. We had spent 6 months pretty much renovating it. And then as I'm driving home, I'm saying, I think we should consider this. And since he's as crazy as I am, he was like, okay, well, we'll look into it. And so that's when we started researching. We started researching and we started looking at videos, and that's how I started seeing your videos. And
Yeah.
we started watching them, and so I think it was shortly after that, Greg, that we reached out to you and to kind of get an idea because we were Googling all sorts of different things like, good schools, because at that point we said, we might put the kids in public school. And at the same time, we wanted a good area.
Yeah.
And so this all happened literally on YouTube, just watching one YouTube video after another. And then yeah, we pretty much got in contact with you. And then in April, yeah, it was in April when we came for like 4 days. And we were supposed to look at all these different areas and came straight to Nocatee. And we both said, this is it. This is the place. And
Yeah.
and so we went back home. And I think in the beginning, I had told you, let's plan for 2025. We
Yeah.
weren't really, really didn't think it was going to happen for 2024. And we went back home, put the house on the market. And at that point, we said, we're going to do it this year. Like we're going to shoot for like the new school year. And it was hectic, but we
Yeah,
made
and
it
you guys
happen.
kept texting me too, like over and over again, because I knew initially I screen people and I go, okay, what's the game plan? Like I say, it's 9 days, 90 days, or 180 days. Let's start the
Yeah.
conversation. And you guys are like, yeah, 2025, we got a lot to plan or whatever. And then I just kept
Yes.
getting text messages like y'all are having anxiety not being here. But before I get into that, like
Yeah.
what I mean, you guys did look at other areas here in St. Johns County besides Nocatee. I mean, you drove through other areas, right?
No, not before we decided on Nocatee. No, we were
Wait a minute,
supposed
I didn't take you to Rivertown or anywhere.
to. No,
Oh, now
no.
you're making
It,
me look bad. I did I suggest it at least?
we took it serious when you said all roads lead to Nocatee in the end.
Lead back to Nocatee. Well, because I bring people into town because they initially see, I live here, so I'm biased, but I have a
Yeah,
lot of folks that live in Rivertown, Bartram, other parts of St. Johns County. It's really dependent on what you
yeah,
want. So that's
right.
why when I do the questionnaire and I figure out what is it you want, but the enthusiasm here is so great that if you're able to afford it, people will go and check out those other areas, and I'll encourage them to do so. But then they end up coming back most
Yeah,
of the time, not all the time, because you can get a lot more house in West St. Johns
yeah,
County. But the thing I always warn people is that you better be there to stay because there's way more construction going on out west in those areas of St. Johns County than Nocatee as we're coming to the end.
right.
But yeah, it's interesting because you guys, sometimes it's hard to take people seriously when you're, saying, oh yeah, we're just gonna, I'm like, what are you crazy? I'm like,
Oh, we
I, I,
are.
yeah, you are. Yeah, no, I like when people say, you got to be encouraged by people that say, especially in a marriage. I mean, you guys have a good marriage where you're like, okay, we're both crazy. Let's go for it. If you're saying
Yeah,
you're willing to do it, I'm willing to do it. But at the same time, I mean, guys were here. I remember clearly, and you're like, I can get this brand new house for this price, and I don't have to pay for private school, and I can live across the street from
yes,
the park and the dog park, and I can drive a golf cart to school
Yeah.
and blah, 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 blah. You were like,
Yeah.
where do I sign up?
Right.
You know,
And
uh,
that was really for us, the biggest reason for us to leave the Destin area was really because of the kids, to be honest. We had a gorgeous house on the golf course, and we loved it. Rodrigo and I loved it. The problem was there were they were mainly retirees in our neighborhood, and there weren't enough kids. And
mhm,
so the kids did not have friends, that they could play with outside. They were teenagers on the street, but kids are still little. So for us, at some point we stood outside. I remember the day we stood outside and we said, you know, do we want this for the kids more than for ourselves? And so at that point it was pretty clear to us that after we had seen Nocatee especially, there was no going back, because I mean the kids fell in love with this area from the moment they saw it. I mean, how could you not, right? With the water parks and the pools and the playgrounds everywhere. And they didn't have that back in Niceville. They just didn't. We could drive places, but not right across the street. And
yeah,
and so for us, it was really the main driver of all of this was we wanted the kids to be in an environment where there's other families, other kids, where they're going to be able to potentially even walk to school, because after we saw, Seabrook especially, we knew there's going to be a new school built, like the kids will be able to walk to school. Like, how
mhm,
amazing is that? You don't get that very often.
yeah,
And so for us, it was, this makes the most sense, being that the kids are 7 and 8 at this point. This is perfect scenario for them.
yeah,
And it was, even for us, it was a perfect scenario. I wouldn't want to go back at this point.
yeah.
So, and it was the first time that we actually decided to move versus the military moving us. So that
It
was
was
a big deal too. Because at
yeah,
this point he was retired, and it was like, well, we can actually go anywhere we like. We don't
mhm,
have to we don't have to move, but we could also go anywhere.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and so
Well, it's a kind of the same reason why we left South Florida. South Florida was very seasonal, right? And I'm sure the Panhandle is the same way. You have all the
yeah,
tourists that come in for season, they leave. Nocatee is a family-oriented area. It's not seasonal. It's mostly people here all year
it
round.
is.
So it's just a different environment in general. This area just encourages family life. It probably, because it's less transient, it feels safer.
Yeah,
Although we're always cautious anyway, regardless of all the parks and everything. But I think that was another thing for us, was the schools that led us here and the family life that we were looking for. The
yeah,
sidewalk, like just having a
yes.
sidewalk on both sides of the street. It
Oh,
irritated the hell out of me. If you were lucky to be in a neighborhood in South Florida, you would have one sidewalk if you were lucky, for the
right.
kids to ride the bikes or whatever. Here we have green, trails all over the place. We have sidewalks on both sides of the street. It's just a better feeling for families,
It
overall.
is.
Yeah.
Sidewalks were actually a big deal to us too, because
Yeah.
we had only lived in a neighborhood with a sidewalk like one time,
Yep.
and every other time they were not. And the kids were really little at that point, right? You wanted
Mhm.
to take them on a little bike ride, and you had to constantly dodge cars and pull them, into the grass. And
Yeah.
so, this here is really for families.
Yes. Yeah.
It's incredible,
Yeah.
incredible.
And the cool thing is, I mean, it's not as touristy as the Panhandle at all, but you still
Yeah.
have a pretty big. There's a lot of military here. I know Rodriguez ran into a lot of
Yes.
retirees that are also military as well. It was a huge. I mean, Jacksonville's got Mayport. So there's 90,000 military families in Jacksonville. So
Yeah, it's a
um,
lot.
that's kind of cool too for him. to have
Yes.
other people that understand and also sacrifice like he had for our country. So it's very patriotic, if you will.
Yes, and there's big. I mean, I didn't realize when we initially moved here, but like Wounded Warrior, Rodrigo is part of Wounded Warrior program, and there's the Wounded Warrior is actually here in Jacksonville also. They
Yeah.
have they have a big building, and so there's a lot happening and a lot to do. There's so much to do,
Hmm.
whether it's going up north or going towards St. Augustine. I mean, we still haven't explored most of the areas that we keep talking about, but it's just you don't get bored here, that's for sure.
No, it's hard to leave the bubble at first. You guys are just as guilty as everyone else. I saw Rodrigo driving a brand new spanking forest green 6-seater raised golf cart, like tan leather. I'm like, dude, that's nice. When did you get
Yeah,
this? It's like it
I
it
think that
doesn't
was the
last.
first month.
Yeah, it doesn't last very long until families just immediately are driving a golf cart. I guess
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. It must be like it's just fun, I guess, and it just you see it and you're like, what are we waiting for? Why are we driving a
yeah,
car around when we can go to the store or go anywhere on the golf cart, open air with the dog and the kids in the dog parks? It's kind of inebriating in a way, isn't it?
it is. And
I've been here 5 years and I still like taking the kids in the morning, even in the cold. It's so refreshing this morning just
oh,
to,
it's awesome. I mean, and then we realized that the school bus was stopping right in front of the house.
yeah,
So we said, okay, even better. Like, you guys and the kids were ecstatic because they didn't take the school bus before, so they were so excited to do that. And
yeah,
but just, I mean, to be able to ride with the golf cart anywhere, it's oh, and I saw that apparently early next year they're gonna build a connection from Reflections over to the town center area. So that's going to be awesome too.
yeah. You
Um,
guys can just cut
I-
through Willow Cove and
yes,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's going to be
it's going to be
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I even was looking into getting another golf cart, even though we really don't need one. But I was going to go with the lithium batteries so that we could drive longer and further without worrying about the cart puckering out. But yeah, it's a running joke that some folks are even getting the golf cart before they've fully furnished the new home. Um,
That was us. That
yeah,
golf cart was there in a
yeah,
hurry. I mean,
yeah.
you almost can't do without, or you don't want to do without,
Yeah.
because it's.
Kind of
I
cruel
mean,
to the kids too, because you have littles like me. And they have to like watch families running around and like for a
yeah,
kid,
yeah,
even though my daughter's 10 and 7 and we carpool with the neighbors, the two girls next door, and I look at them in the morning and I go, oh, you guys are so miserable. It's so lame. You have to drive to school in an open air
I know.
6-seat golf cart with the school that actually has a golf cart drop off line. I'm like, can you just pinch yourself? Because I still pinch
Yeah,
myself every day when I think how fortunate they are, but they're used to it now
yes,
after 5 years. And I'm like, don't get used to this because you're gonna have to be able to afford your own home in a place like this and just realize
yeah,
it's not cheap, to live
no,
here either. Although
you
for
definitely,
Florida it's cheaper, but I think the trade-off is like you guys are also enamored by the fact because you had renovated not all of your house, but you were like kind of like Monica and I, where we renovated a house, but not all of it because we would have been in over our heads.
yeah.
But being able to just move into a brand new never lived in home before, not do
Uh,
anything.
it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. And we talk about it actually pretty often, um, because with the other house, we knew there were so many things that eventually needed to get done,
Yeah.
and in here, and we downsized some. I mean, we went from a 3,200 square foot house to a barely 2,500 square foot house.
Mhm.
But we realized like this is like the perfect size for us. And, every space in this house is being utilized. And we didn't need bigger. We didn't, and it was absolutely perfect. Like, and at this point, I mean, I'm just, it's also, I know we kind of spoke about it briefly, but the insurance that was a big deal to us because our insurance was getting out of control, and we were paying almost 5,000 a year for our insurance over there, and we knew that once we were going to renew, it was probably going to go up even more.
So
So
so if you don't mind sharing, what is your insurance? Your
yeah,
insurance was going to be over 5 grand there on the Panhandle. What's your home insurance like here, like ballpark?
1,200.
1,200 bucks. Yeah.
Yep,
I don't know too
big
many places
difference.
in Florida that's 5 miles from the beach where you're paying 1,200 a year for a 2,500 square foot new home. And of course, because it's new, your insurance is going to be less. But my folks that were closing today, they were like, yeah, they live in a 3,400 square foot Toll Brothers house. Their insurance is 1,500 a year.
Yeah,
1,500,
and
and they're just like, this is unreal. It's
yeah,
scary because I hope it doesn't. It has gone up. I remember mine was like 1,100, 1,200 when I moved here, and it's gone up,
yeah.
but nothing like the rest of Florida. So it's a big difference. you
It
know
is a big difference. I mean, it,
yeah,
it does make a difference, and then especially as you're pouring money into the house to renovate different things, because we still had pretty big projects coming up,
right.
and at some point, we
Yeah.
said, do we really want to continue on with this,
Yeah, like
or
Monica
do
and I had spent like 80 grand renovating kitchens, flooring, everything in our old house.
oh yes,
And we're like, we have to stop. We're going
yeah,
broke. And she's like, yeah, the
yes,
next thing is the bathroom. Then the next thing is this. So we're sitting in this 1970s beautiful home in South Florida, but it seemed like there was no end in sight of when we were going to stop doing projects and be broke. We were
yeah,
paying 6,400 a month in insurance, and that was back 7 years ago. It's now 12,
oh my,
13,000 in South Florida.
that's wild,
And then also we would have most likely had to put our girls in private school. So add another 10, 12,000 a year there for two girls.
yeah,
Essentially, I was going to be saving about $30,000 a year between home insurance, private school, and not having to do renovations because we moved into a brand
yeah.
new house. Screw
That's
all
pretty
that.
much where we were
30
at.
grand a year. I can go on vacation with my family twice a year. Pretty damn
Yes.
nice, good vacations instead of living in South Florida and be in a brand new house that's family oriented. So it was
Yeah.
kind of a no brainer for us.
Yep. Same for us too. We were in the same boat. I mean, we sat down one night and we calculated it out. How much money would we actually save by moving here? And it was mind-boggling. I believe it was around the same 25, I think it was 25, 30,000 a year that we were saving by coming here. And since we had just bought in 2023, the interest rate were higher at that point too. So our mortgage was higher than what we're paying here. And so all of that, once we started taking all of that into account, it just didn't make any sense. It was
Yeah.
a no-brainer, like you said. And seeing the area, yeah, after that, it was over.
And then throw one other thing in the mix. I know a lot of folks that got rid of one family car because car insurance is high in Florida. And they're like, wait a minute, we work from home. We love
Yeah.
being here. We bought a 6-seater golf cart that costs $400 a year to insure. Screw the second car payment and car insurance. We're just going to keep one family car and have a 6-seater golf cart, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think after COVID, people realize, I don't need the huge house. I mean, you guys are
Mhm.
fantastic because you're literally next to one of the biggest amenities in Seabrook. You have a pool across
Yeah.
street. You have a massive park. You have two dog parks. Your bus stop is outside your door. All the kids and families are congregated there. It's like a big party.
Right. It
Um,
is.
I heard people were letting off fireworks at 1:40 in the morning after the elections that morning, by the way.
Yes.
And I'm not
It
being
wasn't us.
critical, but I'm just saying they were letting fireworks off at one. Your poor neighbor, who I also sold a home to, they got up because they thought their golf cart blew up, and they didn't realize people were letting fireworks off at 1:45 in the morning when
Oh
they
yeah.
when they realized who was winning the election. But I digress. How did I get into that? Yeah, no, I thought of that because you live in that area. Did you hear it too? Did you hear the
I
fireworks?
did. I was still awake during that time, so it didn't scare me
Oh,
as
you were
much, but
still glued to the TV. Okay, you were one of those. Okay,
yes, I was.
I went to
I
bed.
just couldn't go
I
to
was
sleep.
Yeah, I wasn't worried. I went to bed. I wasn't convinced about it. Anyway, yes, I mean, you have all that right at your door, and people are to the date, time and date of now after COVID. We're like, do I really want to spend time and money renovating a house every year and taking care of big lawns and all that? No, I'd rather get in my golf cart, go to the water park. I don't even need a
Yeah,
pool. It's right across the street. If my
it's
kids
right
want to
across
go,
the street.
they want to
Yeah,
be with their friends from school anyway, so they're going to
yeah.
want to go to one of the parks to see the kids or go to the events. So like people at that time was like, I don't need the big house, I don't need the two giant
Mhm.
SUVs, and yeah, I'm cool with a
Yeah,
golf cart
and we
lower.
didn't need a big backyard, even though we have 2 dogs, for us, it was I mean, there's so many walkways. I mean, you can walk the dogs anywhere, really, and then
Yeah,
there's the dog park, 2 dog parks right across the street. So for us, it was like, "Okay, we're gonna actually gonna be free on the weekends and not have to do a bunch of yard work," because we were spending our Saturdays doing yard work, before.
yeah,
And it was a fairly good sized yard, and so we don't miss it.
yeah.
But we don't.
Okay, so we're being really biased. We're saying, okay, Nocatee is way better than Emerald Coast. But what do you miss about living over there in Destin area and Emerald Coast and all that? What do you miss about it?
The beaches for sure. It does
Okay.
not. I mean, it does not compare.
Yeah.
The golf is just so different, and I have to say, because we went to visit, like, even the Tampa area, the beaches in the Destin area, or really the Emerald Coast in general, it's
Mhm.
just on another level, and the clear water. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of the pictures I have, it's unreal, because you would think it's like a postcard, but it's truly like that all the time. And
Yeah.
it's rare that you have the water not being clear, unless there's a storm coming through. So the beaches, I would say, for sure, is the biggest. But I would say that's probably the only thing that
Mhm.
we truly miss, because we've gained so much on in every other aspect being here,
Mhm.
that yeah, I think the beach is pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, for people that don't know, I mean, and you and I actually have a little bit of a connection also because I'm from St. Martin originally in the Caribbean. I grew up in some of the most beautiful beaches in the world as well.
Yeah,
And your sister lived there for a while and moved to another Caribbean island. So,
yeah.
my brother growing up down there, again, he lives in Texas now, but they go to uh, what is the name of it again? I said it already. The park there.
Oh,
Great. They go
Brighton
to
Beach.
Great Beach, and we grew up in the Caribbean. And he said, before I'd ever visit, he goes, Greg, I'd say that some of these beach days are better than St. Martin or some of the other Caribbean
Yeah,
islands. You can see straight to your toes. The sand just falls. It's like it's so
it's powdered
granular
sugar.
and white. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, it is absolutely beautiful. Ironically though, I will tell you, Gwen, I think was it last summer or summer, we usually go once a year. We did not go because we were freaked out by those two shark attacks.
yeah,
I know it sounds ridiculous, and I grew up in the waters or whatever, but
yeah,
those two shark attacks last summer were pretty scary in the week span. Because the last time we were there, the manta rays were out of control. I think there were manta
yeah.
or sea rays. You would see 30 of them, you'd be standing in the water and they would just come out of nowhere. And it was a little intimidating because,
Yeah.
they have those little stinger tails or whatever. And I may sound ignorant, but there was at least 30, 40 of them flying through, and my kids got freaked out. And then the summer after,
Yeah.
you hear about a lady and a girl getting bit by
Yeah.
sharks. So that kind of freaked me out a little bit, and it was enough for Monica to be like, not taking that chance. I would never be able to live with myself if my daughter got bit by a shark. And the difference is the
Yeah.
beach here, and I'll let you comment in a second. The whole point I got into this, the beaches here, the water is not as clear and blue. Our sand is more of a shell sand, and our water is more of a green, and some of our sand is more brown. If you're gonna get the better
Mhm.
beaches, probably Atlantic Beach, but I still love the guana preserves. It's a different,
Oh,
totally
yeah.
different vibe. But I'll let you comment. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. Um, I felt the same way after the two shark attacks because for several weeks after they happened, every time we would go to the beach, we would wind up seeing a shark. And and so that was, for especially when you have little kids, you don't, they're so innocent. They run around, they don't think about what's in the water. And so for us at that point, like I was a little nervous myself, I have to say. And and we did not go for a while until it had really calmed down with the shark sightings because
Hmm.
there were just so many of them. And as a
Yeah.
matter of fact, there was a in like when Niceville was there's the bay as well, and so sometimes we would like in the afternoon we would take the kids just to the bay. There was like this little beach. I
Inlet.
mean, I don't know that you want to call it beach, but there was sand and the water. And one day we were coming across the bridge and we saw a full-on shark frenzy, like right there where we would go with the kids. And I
Hmm.
said, "This is it." Like and the water there in the bay is not as clear, so you can't really see what's there.
Hmm.
And and I have to say that freaked me out even more. I was like, we shouldn't be going back there again.
Yeah.
And it's probably a little, over exaggerated, but at the same time, once you see it happening in front of you, you're just, a little more protective. And for me, it was like there's no way that I'm gonna let the kids go back and swim around at least for a while after that happened. So
Well, the sharks are
we
not looking to attack people. They're just feeding in
no,
those shallow waters, and they're getting more
they are
brazen, coming closer inland. And it's the little feet and the arms and all that stuff that they don't
right.
are looking for it. It's a mistaken thing, and it's just you just never know. You know what I mean? So
Right.
those, and we've been going there for years. But that was it last summer. It wasn't this summer or the summer before. I can't remember. It's all I work so much now. It's all but I think it might have been last summer.
It was
But
this summer.
yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of freaked us out a little bit for sure. The whole sharky thing. Not to say that there's not sharks here. I mean, Jack's Beach, there's
Right.
been some sharks by the pier and the fishing pier, whatever. But um, and I've heard
And I
some of
heard you
my
can find some shark teeth too on the beach.
yeah, everybody goes shark. Do you guys do that did they do that in the Panhandle as well, looking for shark's teeth? Is that as common as it is
No,
here?
and not at all. And as a matter of fact, like we never really found any type of like seashells. That was one of the exciting things about here. The kids were so ecstatic to see that there were seashells everywhere. And so that's a really big difference really to the panhandle because we really didn't find seashells whatsoever. It was just pure sand.
Yeah,
But here you can find seashells
and
all the
shark's teeth.
time.
Yeah, little
Yeah,
black
and
shark
shark's
teeth.
teeth.
Yeah, interesting. Did you guys have red tide over there like they do on the southern Gulf Coast? That stinky smell, that dead fish, and did you ever get that
Yeah,
there?
we had some moments where there was like heavy like seaweed like I think it's the
Seaweed?
seagrass, the algae and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't remember a red tide though.
Yeah, it was really bad down in Fort Myers and Naples part where you couldn't, or Sanibel or those islands where you couldn't even go to the beach. The smell was so bad and it was
Yeah,
killing some of the sea life. But yeah, I don't think it's as prevalent on Northwest Gulf Coast as it is on the Southern Gulf Coast. So
right.
that's interesting. Okay, so you moved to Nocatee. So far, so good. The kids are in school. You guys are getting adjusted to it. You still haven't gotten out of the bubble yet to enjoy some of the other parts that Jacksonville and St. Augustine have to offer, but you will. Uh, we
I will.
eventually, we eventually did. It took forever, though. I mean, it really
Yeah,
did. Sometimes the simple things in life, not having to get in your car or go anywhere, and just
yeah.
I mean, that's why
Well,
we live
yeah,
here.
I did get tickets for the St. Augustine Night of Lights that starts,
Oh,
I
okay.
guess, this weekend. So I
Yes.
did get that. So we'll at
Yes.
least get out next
Yes.
week.
So I don't know if anybody's watching or anybody watches this in recording. If anybody's done the Grinch ride in the St. Augustine Night of Lights, if you've ever done that, please put a comment down because my wife and I and the girls did it last year and it was the most insane experience I've ever had. So the
What's
Night of Lights in St. Augustine is majestic. If you haven't done
Yeah,
it, it is probably people come from all over the country or the world because St. Augustine is the biggest tourist attraction. And it's what 30, 40 minutes away from us downtown St. Augustine. And it is majestic during Christmas. It's absolutely gorgeous. But add this into it. You get on a golf cart with the Grinch, and he's full on Grinch garb. And not only is this guy full on Grinch garb, he is wacko. Uh, he is the nut. You get in the golf cart. It's a red golf cart, and I think there was 8 of us on our family of 4 and maybe 6. And he just drives through downtown St. Augustine, and it was a Saturday night, and he's just yelling at people, and it's just outrageous behavior. I thought we were gonna die. He was making fun of people with obnoxious comments, coming behind people walking on the side of the road, and we're on a golf cart and we were just crying in laughter. But what an absolute insane experience that was. So if you've never done it, the Grinch of Christmas in St. Augustine Night of Lights is a whole nother level. So you have to book it in advance.
yeah,
But it is an experience for sure. So but I'm glad you're getting to do that because that's so much fun.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You've
And
never done it before.
I've never done it before. I went to this. This was probably about more than 15 years ago. My parents came from Germany to visit, and I was living in North Carolina during that time. And we ended up on a road trip down to Miami. So we drove down like the whole, coast of Florida,
Yeah.
essentially. And we ended up stopping in St. Augustine. And it's so interesting because my parents absolutely loved St. Augustine, even though this has been over 15 years at this point. And when they
Mhm.
found out that we were going to be moving to Nocatee and it's so close to St. Augustine, they were like, this is amazing. We love St. Augustine. I mean, it
Yeah.
just stuck with them all these years. Not Miami, not any of the other places. It was St. Augustine.
Yeah.
So, and it is a very particular and beautiful city. So
St. Augustine is a just gorgeous, historic, cobblestone, beautiful coastal city. It's got lots of history, and then you still
yeah,
have that touristy feel. It's like a very historical Key West, if you will. I call it the Key West of Northeast Florida, minus some of the Key West stuff that people would be thinking about. But there's a lot of bars. There is the university flagler there, but
yeah,
we do our sunset cruises there in the summertime for customer appreciation. It's just it's beautiful. And some of our favorite
yeah.
restaurants are, if you haven't gone to Collage, that is an amazing
No,
eat there as well. So you'll definitely like amazing. You'll love the Christmas Night of Lights. Your kids are gonna just absolutely have a blast.
yeah. I'm
So
excited. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, cool. All right, so we've already blown through 50 minutes. So the beautiful thing is that anybody's watching that now or on recording, nobody's mentioned where they're watching from, so they must be locals or can't be my mom because my mom's not here on earth anymore. But
Mm,
anyway, I would say that I'm super excited to announce that you're joined my team here in Jacksonville. The
yes,
whole process of getting to know you and that you had a real estate background in back in the Destin area. You joined us. And what's really great for me is that I do get a lot of people from different parts of Florida and the Panhandle that are looking to relocate here, just like you. And I would
yes,
rather somebody who's lived there and gone through it help somebody with that experience. So, and then also the fact that Rodrigo is military and you guys have that military background. I have such a big heart and honor people to serve this country, and I don't take it lightly. And it's one of the most important things for me living here. I feel like the military influence in families here add a culture to Jacksonville that is not comparable to any other part of the state of Florida. I don't know why. Maybe
yeah,
because we've got a very southern Bible Belt kind of bleeding in from Georgia, Alabama. But then you add the military. I always say to people, it just makes me feel like there's the discipline and the moral foundations of the military or the patriotism really bleeds into our culture here heavily. And I truly
does.
love that. And I don't know if you could agree,
Yeah,
but that's what I feel like because we're all just trying to live a good life, regardless of what you believe in, regarding what your politics is. We just want our
yeah,
kids to have a normal, good, healthy life and grow up to be functioning human beings because we live in such a messed up world. And we just
absolutely.
trying to navigate these waters as parents. So when I work with someone, it's no surprise if you read my Google reviews, whatever. I treat people like I want to be treated, and I do the best I can to serve them. But sometimes, if a military family or somebody that's coming from a different part of Florida, I lived in South Florida, my wife lived in Tampa, so there's areas that we know very well. But we only visit Panhandle, so uh, having you on board to help those folks out specifically. You've done it. You have an amazing, you and your family. I mean, you and Rodrigo have hearts of gold. I mean, even my other clients that live near you that I sold homes to comment on how amazing you guys are, and they love Rodrigo. By the way, I don't know what he says or does or whatever, but no offense to you, but they love him.
Oh, they
So
absolutely do.
yeah. So, it's really, really important to me that if I can't do everything myself, this channel's blown up and I work such long hours, but I love it. I'm a workaholic. It's okay. But I think I want people to have the right experience. So it is just an honor to have you on board my team to help out. We have Brenda, and then we have some people that are helping out part time. But having you on board to help people through the process of what you just went through and being able to empathize with them more so because you just did it, and even more so if you get families with military backgrounds, understanding
Yeah.
where they're coming from. You're the one. So, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm super excited. I'm honored too, Greg. I really couldn't have imagined this happening. But I'm just so grateful, and I'm excited for what's to come, and to be able to help out and hopefully help out, lots of families who are either moving here like we did after retirement, or just move into the area because they want to.
Mhm.
I don't know that I ever told you this, but when I,
Well,
especially for
wait, hold on.
military,
This is live
yes,
on YouTube, so you're not just telling me. I hope you didn't forget. I'm
no,
just kidding.
I didn't forget.
All right,
I
all
didn't
right. Tell
forget.
me. All
But
right, good.
so what actually got me into real estate was we were still active duty, essentially moving around, and we had, when we moved from Texas to Florida, and this happens all the time. I mean, all the time for all military families. You purchase a home and you are so far away, and you are not on location. You don't see what's happening. You don't see, and so we ended up having a pretty bad experience when we relocated to Florida. The day after closing, I thought everything was done, but the folks were still in the house and they were still moving stuff out of the house. And this was post closing. And I thought, this can't be right. This is not what should happen, right? And it shouldn't be. And I remember that day I said, honey, I'm flying out to Florida. I'm gonna go and get the key, because the real estate agent I was working with at the time, she was holding on to the keys. And I said, I'm flying to Florida and I'm gonna get the keys. I'm gonna make sure the house is okay. Because at this point we own it. And I get there and there was trash everywhere in the house. I mean, literally everywhere. There was the furniture still in there. I mean, it was just a bad experience. And that was really what prompted me to get into real estate, because I said, especially for military families who don't have the luxury a lot of times to
Mm-hmm.
actually see the home. And I helped some military families, who really who never got a chance to actually see the house before they actually moved and had already purchased the home. So you
Mm-hmm.
are their eyes. You have to make sure that you are looking out for their best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for me like the biggest motivator, where I said, this will not happen again under my watch. Like, I want to be able to help families out who are in this situation, especially, but then for others too, because again, we are, especially when they can't be on location and in new construction. I'm sure like you're dealing with this on a daily basis too. People live somewhere else and can't be there all the time to check on the progress and this and that. So you have to make sure you have their best interest at heart, and to look out for them.
Yeah.
And so I truly felt like you were that person when we relocated here. I could reach out to you at any point and find out what was happening, and that was so helpful, Greg. Like, for and this is why and you're just a good person, but I'm so honored to be part of the team, and to be able to now help uh, families here in this area.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and we do real estate a little different. We're not traditional, and
Yeah,
I've been very long doing everything myself and slowly entrusting people. Like, I worked with Brenda for a long time. She worked for the builder, and I worked with her,
yeah,
doing business with her. But I always have to remind people in new construction, there's always going to be issues. Always, it's
yes,
construction, and the builders and the reps, they have the best interest of the builders, not you. And so
absolutely.
you certainly should not be buying a new construction home, even if it's done. You guys bought a quick move in and there were still issues with it, and maybe little, but there still was.
Yeah,
So it's a big role, since we do a lot of new construction. There's so much opportunity here to be in a new home. It's a very big role, and you're absolutely right. I can't tell you, out of all the transactions we've done this year, dozens, how many bought virtually, and
yeah,
didn't come here at all, or never been
right.
here. In fact, I'm sure some of our friends that are watching tonight, they committed to a lot here in Nocatee and Reflections, and they were out with Brenda after 30 days doing all their selections, finishes, and they texted me yesterday or this morning when they arrived and said, "Hey, we're going to see our lot for the first time. Never been here."
Yep,
So that's the kind of trust that people put on us. And
yes,
the number one thing is that you have to have the personality, the character, and the foundation, like yourself and I, to treat people exactly the way you would be treated. And that would be a number one priority, first and foremost. And so I know you're going to do that. I've watched you guys. I've done this transaction. I've been chatting with you guys since spring when you first reached
Yes.
out, and you learn a lot about people through this process, through the most stressful times. And so it's really awesome to have help, be an extension of my brand, and treat people properly. I know you're going to do that, and you're going to treat people even better than me, because I can't do it all and give the same amount of service. So I'm super excited for that, and that you have a little bit more different backgrounds and little areas that I don't have. So that is going to be super cool. If anybody's watching now or on recording, if you don't like me, well, guess what? I may not be the right person or your flavor. And so maybe Gwen is, or you have a military background, or you're coming from the Panhandle. So now you have somebody that genuinely will care for you. And with that being said, we'll still be working together. I will always oversee as a broker. I will always oversee and work together as a team with Gwen to make sure that you're exploring every opportunity. So you're kind of getting a 2-for-1 kind of deal. And I think that's super exciting. It's gonna make the brand better. It's gonna make things more exciting, because not everybody likes me. I'm very direct. I'm very straightforward, and I'm not for everybody. So perhaps you can offer a different character, personality that mesh with some people. So I don't work with everybody. That's why I screen you guys. I screened you guys, remember?
Absolutely.
I sent a questionnaire to make sure that we're the right fit. And so anybody's watching, if you're thinking about moving the area, whether it's 9 days, 90 days, 180 days, reach out, send us an email, send us a text. And if you want to connect with Gwen instead, just say, hey, Greg, nice to be in touch, but we want to talk with Gwen. So I'm fine with that. Cool. So be it. So also, if you guys are watching tonight, or anybody has any questions, put it in the comments. We have had no interaction tonight, which is easy. That means they're just listening. But if you're watching this in recording, put any questions you may have about the Panhandle or relocating to Nocatee or this area. Any questions you have for Gwen, I'll make sure she pops on this video recording, and also answers those questions if you have anything else. So anything else you want to add, Gwen?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you so much, Greg, for having me and having me on tonight. So I'm very excited.
It was awesome just to be able to talk about the relocation, and also to introduce you folks. So it's always great to have a firsthand experience of people that have done it, that have relocated or moved here. So
yes,
I appreciate your time tonight. I know you have littles and a husband and all that, but you took the time out to join us tonight, and I think you provided some really cool value. And thank you. For folks that are that's not subscribed yet, if you want to subscribe, great. If not, I'm okay with that. I'm not a YouTuber. I don't monetize off YouTube. We do this to create value for people that are moving to the area, so that you know what you're getting. What you see is what you get. If you feel like subscribing, great. We put out videos every Tuesday, and I'm trying to get on every Thursday, every other Thursday night live like this, interactive. So subscribe. If you're thinking about moving the area, reach out, and either Gwen and I will help you, and the rest of my team as well. So have a great night. If I don't see you, happy Thanksgiving. Whoever's going away, be safe out there, be grateful, and have amazing time. Yep. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.